Greetings. I would like to explain, and to a more limited extent, define what men going their own way are, MGTOW, MGTOW, however you want to pronounce it, because I've seen a plethora of comments for, well, quite some time now, months, I guess, where the concept of MGTOW and MGTOW is at the very least inaptly described. Sometimes it's just a total misnomer. Sometimes it's the reasoning behind it is totally misunderstood. So let me try, in my own opinion, I'm not citing this as an absolutist truth. I try to never do things like that. There's no Gnostic truth from me. That my understanding and what I think MGTOW is. Now, I'm not going to make reference to any manifestos, since I find that distasteful. Manifestos always smack of ideology, and I hate ideology. What I will talk about is MGTOW in its modern, or most modern incarnation, as we are experiencing it and living it today. So, this is in part a response to Girl Writes What's latest video, which in some ways seems to support the idea of MGTOW in light of certain circumstances. In some ways seems to oppose it. I'm not going to pass judgment either way. But she herself, and towards the end of the video, admits, given all the circumstances, I encourage you to watch the video, I'll post a link, given all the circumstances, it has become a near impossibility to have a relationship with a woman. And this is, I think, where MGTOW begins, men going their own way. There might be all sorts of reasons why some men choose to be men going their own way. There might be highly variable, but I'm of the opinion that most men going their own way are conventional men, beholden to their inner drives, instincts, and their essentially biologically deterministic behavior, who have recognized that circumstances as they exist today, in the form, such a form as they exist today, are rather incompatible with those drives and instincts. That is to say, the idea of coupling with women, founding a family, and so on and so forth. I have no doubt, in fact, I know that many men going their own way do so reluctantly. And they yearn and pine away for an alternative, the dim and remote possibility that, yes, indeed, there might be some special female out there who will be a grand exception to the many non-exceptions. And that might be an issue of what stage one is in with regards to MGTOW, or it might be something just personal, individual. But at the bottom, at the base of it all, bottom line is that men going their own way, MGTOW, as a concept, is the recognition that for whatever reasons you might have as an individual man, whatever your yearnings, whatever your desires to be with women, to copulate with women, to reproduce with women, that the likelihood of that working out is so infinitesimally small that it's probably not worth investing the time and energy to do so. That to indeed invest time and energy in that is tantamount to not only wasting time, but quite possibly setting yourself up for a far worse failure, involvement in the legal system where you'll be penalized by dint of you being a man, just as an example. In the case of, well, child support, false rape accusations, and all the other insanity that can possibly accompany relationships with the modern female. So, primarily, men going their own way, as a concept, is a reaction to a set of circumstances that we live under as men, as modern men. Now, there are a lot of naysayers and people who, for whatever reason, look down on the concept of MGTOW. And I'm not just talking about the name callers, the ones who call us faggots and what have you, or beta males. But the simple fact is, when a Kobe Bryant, who is by every definition of dominance hierarchy competition, not a beta male, can be taken to the cleaners by his ex-wife. I think she got $75 million, which is not a small sum, as well as several houses, that no man, no matter how esteemed he might be for his skills, talent, and work ability, no matter how high up he might be in the dominance hierarchy, he's essentially ineffectual and a feed within the legal system that we live in, at least in the West, in particular in the Anglo-Saxon cultures. So, recognizing that, men go in their own way, choose to abstain from relationships. Not some choose to abstain from interaction at all with females, some don't. That's highly variable. But the idea of, I don't like using the word tradition, the traditional relationship in the sense of engaging in female partnership and then reproducing with said female and so on and so forth, that the risks are simply too great. Whether some men go in their own way do so reluctantly or do so with joy or a sense of freedom or a sense of bitterness is highly irrelevant with regards to this, because that is the bottom line, in my opinion, in my observation, in my understanding of what it means to be a man going his own way. That whatever our individual reasons might be, the circumstances are fairly objective, and we will react to the extent that we can. Men going their own way is an objective reaction to objective circumstances. The individual processing of that and the internalization and realization of these things, of course, these are separate issues, and different men will process and internalize them differently. Some might need more time, some might be plagued and be riddled by guilt and all sorts of pangs of yearning their entire lives. It's going to be highly variable. But objective circumstances, i.e., nigh impossibility of, for lack of a better word, traditional relationships with females, reproduction, lack of rights as a father, so on and so forth. And quite honestly, as Girl Rights What alludes to, the essential impossibility, I mean, not just all the legal stuff, but anyone who's been in a relationship with a modern woman, and I think many of us have, knows what it's a circus act, vaulting through hoops nonstop in an effort to please her. And one might claim you can filter out the good ones from the bad ones, but it's almost impossible. I mean, you never really know a person. People change over the years. It's just too much of a risk. And essentially that is what men going their own way is about. It's risk assessment. What are the risks? Are the risks too great? Now, I'm not going to admonish men who choose not to go their own way. I'm not a dictator. I don't tell people what to do, and I don't offer Gnostic truths about anything. But in my estimation, in the modern world we live in, with the modern female, as she is, in addition to the natural inclination she has, i.e. hypergamy, it is simply too risky to get involved in any deep level with them that is beyond, and we know the dangers of casual sex as well, which I talked about, but beyond any sort of casual encounter. That is what men going their own way is essentially about. It is a reaction to a set of circumstances, objective circumstances that can be confirmed by virtually anyone living in the world we live in, and an objective reaction. No matter how much individual men within the community, if you want to call it that, of men going their own way, might rail against that, we all have our instincts, and we're all beholden to some limited extent, some more than others, to those instincts, sure. But, and that's what it is. It's a reaction. It's a risk assessment. It's a consequence of a risk assessment. We've come to this conclusion. We choose not to get involved. No matter how alpha you might be, you can still be taken to the cleaners legally. No matter how alpha you might be, you can be accused of rape, and all your laudation and accolades will be torn away from you. Look what happened to Brian Banks, and you will end up in jail quite possibly. No man is immune. So we make the risk assessment. We act accordingly. Now, I'm not going to badmouth men who choose not to go their own way, who still want to pursue relationships with females. In fact, I'd say to them, good luck. But I think it's quite a pity that those self-same men would not wish men going their own way luck in their own endeavors. Because, as I explained, objective circumstances, objective reaction. How the reaction manifests itself individually is quite irrelevant. It is basically the assessment that relationships are just too dangerous overall. Don't get involved with them. Period. That's it. Beyond that, There will be a lot of variation in the, as I said, variation with individuals and how they act and react within men going their own way, different opinions on virtually everything, different political opinions, different interests. I mean, it's really, you cannot categorize men going their own way in that sense, apart from the very broad headline that I'm offering. You know, objective circumstances, subjective reaction to circumstances, risk assessment, consequence, outcome of risk assessment. That's all it is. Now, because in my estimation as well, the possibility that we are some gonna in our lifetimes, some of us are younger and older, but say within the next 50 or so years, that we're going to return to something that does not resemble the current system, or rather that's not going to get worse. If you look at the trends, I think it will get worse, and so I think it's a rational choice to enter into the concept of being a man going his own way. Being a man going his own way, in contrast to some people claiming otherwise, does not mean being a total hermit. It doesn't mean not being concerned about people, not taking part in, I don't know, community. I mean, you can do all of these things. It simply means that the risks associated with relationships are too great. And those people, those men, were utterly convinced that their sweetheart is not of the sort, not of the ilk that we sometimes talk about. Well, I'll let time decide that for you. But I'm a bit sick and tired of the accusations, of the misrepresentations of what it means to be a man going your own way. Beyond the more or less objective definition I've given, description, we're all completely different individuals. We come, in some cases, from completely different parts of the globe. Some of us live in the States, some of us live in Europe. I know several who live in Asia. Admittedly, they're expats, but that's neither here nor there. So you can't really just put us under some sort of umbrella term, or just describe us as a one shoe size fits all. We're all very different. I would say, all agree that the risks are just too great. It's not, and I mean, I don't even feel a need to describe to defend this, but it's not because we can't get laid. After all, I've had approximately 7 serious relationships in my life, and numerous fuck partners. My big issue is that all of that was just not worth the headache, retrospectively, for all sorts of reasons. Violence offered against me, mind games, as I said, the endless vaulting through hoops, spending money, the mood swings, the tantrums, and all of that. It's simply not worth it. Now, that said, if I really wanted to, and most of us we could go out in the next few days and probably quote-unquote get laid or acquire female interest. It's not that hard. After all, I'm not a terribly bad-looking guy. I work out. I'm fairly coherent when I speak. But none of this really matters because, in my estimation, that the risks are just too great. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. And I'll repeat it one more time. Objective circumstances, feminism having infiltrated everything, the modern woman's behavior, objective reaction, men seeing the reality for what it is and reacting to it. Now, you can say that it's wrong all you want, or it's anti-family. I suppose in some way, shape, or form, it's by default anti-family, because even though many, I suspect, I happen probably not to be one of those men, but many men within MGTOW would like to have families, but they don't see it as an option. And so it's not so much directly anti-family as a realization that the dream of a family is just not, it's living in reality, it's not realizable. Totally different things. I prefer to live in reality, and I think ultimately most men going their own way do as well. You can idealize things as much as you want. You can pretend things are in a certain way, but ultimately reality will bite you in the ass because you'll have to deal with the consequences of that misconception, that false belief. Anyway, for now, that's all I have to say about that, and thank you for watching.